Alright, YouTubers, welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Mr. Digital 45, and we're going to do the ends today. Being New Year's Day, I thought we'd do the ends. And here we go. First up, we got Night of the Animated Dead. Next up, we got Audie Murphy and No Name on the Bullet. Followed by The Never Ending Story. Next up, we got The Never Ending Story 2. Alright, next up we got Robert De Niro and Liza Minnelli in New York, New York, directed by Martin Scorsese. Alright, next up we got Sean Connery's final appearance of James Bond. He said he would never do it again, but then he came back, and the movie is called, of course, Never Say Never Again. Also with Kim Basinger in this and Barbara Carrera. Next up, we got The Night Shifter. Followed by Gene Hackman and Anne Archer in Narrow Margin. Next up, we got Leslie Nielsen and The Naked Gun. Followed by The Naked Gun 2.5. Also with Priscilla Presley. I forgot about that. And then, of course, you know, the controversy, O.J. Simpson. He was doing these series when he got in trouble. And of course, last but not least, we got Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult. Next up, we got a movie called The North Shore. Next up, we got The Nutty Professor 2. I don't know if I have the first one. I thought I did, but I didn't see it when I was pulling all the ends out here, but we'll find out. Next up, we got Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif in Night of the Generals. Then next up we got the original classic from George A. Romero, Night of the Living Dead, the original 1968 movie. Next up we got Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward in A New Kind of Love. Next up we got Colin Farrell in The New World, the extended cut. Next up we got Patrick Swayze and a cast of others, and David Carradine, a bunch of Kirstie Alley, a whole bunch of people in this movie. It's a TV series, North and South. It's the complete collection of the series. Next up we got Paul Newman again and Nobody's Fool. Next up, we got a movie called Night Train to Paris. Next up, we got the iconic Marilyn Monroe in Niagara. Next up, we got Matthew McConaughey in The Newton Boys. Next up, we got Jeff Bridges and Kim Basinger and Rip Torn and Nadine. Next up, we got Martin Lawrence and Tim Robbins in Nothing to Lose. Next up, we got Steve Martin and Laura Dern and Helen Bonham Carter and Novocaine. Next up, we got Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant in Notting Hill. Next up, we got Antonio Banderas and Rebecca De Mornay and Never Talk to Strangers. Next up, we got Charlie Sheen and Michael Biehn, and Bill Paxton is also in this movie. Navy SEALs. Ooh, Navy SEALs, just like in Clerks. The guy with the movies. There you go. Next up, we got some Nicolas Cage in National Treasure. Followed by National Treasure 2, Book of Secrets. I haven't watched the TV show they came out with. Never had got a chance to watch it. I wanted to, but I haven't watched it. Next up, we got some classic horror movie here. Rachel Ward, in one of her first movies, Night School. Next up, we got John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd in Neighbors. Next up, we got the remake, directed by Tom Savini, Night of the Living Dead. Next up, we got Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis, Robert Downey Jr., and Tommy Lee Jones in Natural Born Killers, directed by Oliver Stone. This is the original uncut version. Next up, we got Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. He was just producer, he didn't direct it, but it's his story, and it's one of my favorite movies. My wife collects everything Nightmare Before Christmas. I really do enjoy it. Next up, we got Ninja 3, The Domination. Old canon movie. A third in a ninja movie series. First one called Enter the Ninja, which I probably showed you all back in when we were doing the E's. And another one will be coming up in the R's, Return of the Ninja. or Revenge of the Ninja, one of the two, I can't remember. It's either Return or Revenge of the Ninja, I can't remember. But this is the third one in the series with Shu Shigogi again. This is, of course, Ninja 3. Next up, we got Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton and Shelley Long. There was One Stick and Night Shift. Directed by Ron Howard. And Mac Davis in North Dallas 40. And next up we got the movie Notebook. Next up we got Chris Kattan and Will Ferrell in Night at the Roxbury. Alright, next up we got Don Adams reprising his role from the TV show Get Smart, but they made a movie. It's called The Nude Bomb. Next up, we got some Tommy Lee Jones, Michael O'Keefe, and Nathan Hayes. Next up, we got Robert Redford in the director's cut of The Natural. Next up, we got Natalie Portman and Ashton Kutcher and No Strings Attached. Next up, we got Frank Sinatra, Steve McQueen, and Gina Lola Brigida and Never So Few. Next up, we got some Christy McNichol, Dennis Quaid, and Mark Hamill. A movie he did in between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back called The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia. Next up, we got Ben Stiller, Night of the Museum. Followed by Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian. But don't forget, Robin Williams was great in this too. One of his last 3 movies he did before he died. And of course, the third one, Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb. And last but not least, in the ends, we got some Marlon Brando and Richard Boone in The Night of the Following Day. Don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up if you like this video. I appreciate everybody that's watching out there. And until next time, see ya.